Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I'm really excited to bring you our featured guest today, which is Natalie Jahnke of Innovation Creation Experts. She specializes in social media and public relations for some of the top NHRA racers, including Steve Torrence. So really excited to have her on. Before I get to that show, I have a few things I want to cover with you. First off is my voice here. I am overcoming laryngitis. I've actually had no voice a couple days ago, and I canceled 2 of my recordings just because it was crazy. But I got a little bit here. I just got to try to get through this intro, and then I'm recording an outro right after that. I got a special concoction here of some sort of honey water stuff to get me through this, but just deal with it for a couple of minutes. The rest of the show is with a normal Josh Weesey voice. But I want to tell you first about AMSOIL. You've probably heard about them. If you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you've definitely heard about AMSOIL. But maybe you've seen them at Sturgis or the AMSOIL Championship Snowcross Series, maybe your local track. They're all over power sports, and here is why. They get it. They're gearheads, they're riders, they're racers just like us, but they're also chemists and engineers. That means they're good at making synthetic oil. The time they spent at the track and on the streets and also in their testing facilities lets them see firsthand how tough equipment is on oil. There's a lot of extreme heat, there's stress, high RPM, especially the way we all treat our stuff. It's pretty much pushing things to its limit. But all that conspires to sideline your ride. Now, AMSOIL handcrafts synthetic lubricants that fight wear and resist extreme heat so you get the most power, the best performance, and that is why they are part of the show. And that's why I support them. I know they make a good product. I want you to know more about them. So head over to amsoil.com/rider for details, and you can see their whole line of products there. All right. I want to tell you a little bit more about this show, too. I want you to be successful in your sponsorship program. To do that, you have to understand public relations. You have to understand how to properly leverage social media and talk about it. So that's what we talk about in this show with Natalie. She gives you some really good tips. She taught me some new things for sure in the show. So really good stuff. I want to get your feedback as well. Head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. That is one of the best ways to continue this show so that we can continue to get the support from the listeners. We can show that support to our sponsors, and we can continue to exist and grow. So do that, and also subscribe. That's the best way to not miss any of our upcoming shows. Now, this episode here was brought to you by SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP XCV axle specialists. Neverlift Racing, they create comfortable race-inspired apparel. And then Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and of course, GSP XTV. Without further ado, let's hop in. And actually, before I have you do a quick intro here, I do want to give some insights to the audience. So I had published something, I don't know, a couple months ago about having you and NHRA Top Fuel driver Steve Torrence come on together, but we ended up splitting that out because the scheduling is just crazy sometimes. So either way, you are here to talk about some pretty cool stuff, but that's it. I'm done butchering the intro. I want to let you take it from here. So Natalie, go ahead and fill in the gaps from that and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So not only do I get to the privilege of dealing with world champion Steve Torrence in the NHRA drag racing, but I also have 5 or 6 other clients that I assist from the Top Fuel ranks, Pro Stock Motorcycle, Pro Stock Car, Pro Modified, as well as Top Fuel Harley. I got started back in 2016 when I founded my company, Innovative Creation Experts, also known as ICE. We try to keep it simple, nice. ICE, to cater to the many different race teams in NHRA, to assist in visual aid, not only of the team, but of the drag racing industry. We have numbers that prove that drag racing and the fanship of drag racing is increasing. So what better way to be a part of an increasing industry than be on the forefront, aiding other teams to get their visual expertise. I have a bachelor's in business administration. I also have a master's in innovative business strategy. So not only do I have real world experience, but I also have textbook experience as well. I have over 10 years of working in the motorsports industry with companies like Harley-Davidson, Valvoline, Chevrolet, Sunoco, and Toyota, just to name a couple. So coming and working with Fortune 500 companies, and then working with these small family racing, small-based teams to really try to grow their presence in the industry is really what I thrive on.
No, that's awesome. I got to ask you, though, maybe I have to put this request in. Do you have any clients that do the snowmobile drag racing, on the pavement?
Well, those, or that class, I should say, come out to maybe a handful of races.
Yeah.
So I haven't had the opportunity to work with any of those teams, but I'd be more than happy to take on one or two of those type of clients.
Yeah, there might be, I think there's one listener that I'm aware of that does that kind of racing. But I love that stuff. I'm a snowmobile person. That's one of the reasons why this is called Sponsored Rider Club Podcast, is because of snowmobile riders. But I always thought it was pretty cool seeing those sleds get out on the pavement, with their slick tracks and the wheel kits up front. I thought it was a pretty cool setup. But not that all the other stuff isn't cool, but that's just always been something that's intrigued me personally.
When the snowmobiles come out, it's definitely a novelty thing, and I know a lot of people stay and sit in the stands just to watch them, so they do bring a big following.
Definitely. Hey, if people are listening right now, hey, maybe that's your next thing. If you're snowmobiling, you're looking out like me in Michigan, and it's January, and you're looking out and you're like, there's no snow anywhere, but maybe you need to convert your sled to NHRA and give Natalie a call and say, hey, help me out.
I know. I know that there's in Brainerd, Minnesota in August, the snowmobiles are out there, and it's pretty neat to watch.
Well, that's cool. Good intro. I want to know more, though. I want to dive deeper. I want to know your story. That's one of the things we do in this show is we take Heat 1 and dedicate it to better understanding the guests, like where they came from, what are the things that they've done, how do they get to where they're at. Because we're trying to build a relationship. That's what I talk about in the show a lot, is building relationships. It's very important in the sponsorship industry. But this is our time for me to build a relationship with you and for our listeners to build a relationship with you. So let's start from the beginning. What's your story? I want to know all of the good details. How'd you get into this industry? How'd you get into social media, public relations, and all that stuff?
Well, I never thought I would be in the motorsports industry, to be honest with you. I started out associating going to the drag strip with making money as opposed to, a hobby or a passion, like so many of these riders or racers find themselves. A lot of these racers grow up at the drag strip or at the track or whatnot. And I didn't find drag racing or motorsports till I was 17 or 18. I went to University of Laverne, and if anybody is understands where Laverne is at, it's right across from the Pomona Fairplex, which is where the drag races start and end every February and November. So I would sit in class at University of Laverne, and I would hear this large event happen right outside the window, and hear these really loud cars go down this track. And where there's a lot of people, there's an opportunity to make money. And I started working for Harley-Davidson at my local track, and it was Harley-Davidson, the manufacturer out of Milwaukee. They were looking for a couple employees to come out and represent their motorcycles and teach about motorcycle safety. And actually did that for a little over 8 years. What turned into a 1 to 2 event a year turned into 10, turned into 15, which turned into the full 24 event circuit. And that's really where I got started. They had given me an opportunity to grow within the company and grow within NHRA drag racing. And not only did I get to participate in drag racing, but also all of the motorcycle rallies, Sturgis, Daytona, Laconia. So my love for drag racing grew there, and then I also grew a passion for motorcycles and motorcycle safety and learning how to ride one and own one, and lo and behold, now I'm representing motorcycles and cars on the NHRA drag racing circuit.
So did you know when you started at Laverne, did you know anything about the connection to drag racing, or I mean, is it just something that happened while you're there?
It's just something that happened while I was there. I didn't know anything about an elapsed time or, fastest mile per hour. I didn't even know that it was a quarter mile. So it's drag racing has definitely been self-taught and something that I've had to learn and had to learn very quickly in order to be an expert in my industry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's pretty cool, though. I always like hearing people's stories. Everybody's got their own, right, about how they got to where they're at. And there's so many little, like, decisions along the way that they don't seem that significant at the time. Or maybe even the reason why you made the decision it didn't lead to the actual outcome that you were expecting. It led to this completely different outcome. So I'm sure when you were signing up to go there, you weren't thinking like, oh, this could lead to a career in drag racing one day.
What's interesting is I'm not sure who said it or where I heard it from, but the idea of when the world continues to call you back to a certain thing or a certain passion, it's probably what you were meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was young, I'd always been a promoter. Whether it was promoting the football team or promoting a nonprofit organization, I've always found myself at the forefront of promoting something.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting my own company and helping these teams promote themselves using social media and public relations is what I've done my entire life. It's just in a different capacity and what the world has always called me to do.
Oh, that's very cool. And, when people can connect what they do for a living to their passion, that's when you started to figure things out, if you stop thinking about work as work and more about like, this is just what I do with my life, that's a nice thing. That's why there's a lot of people that come in this show too. They're, I'm thinking of one. I think it was Matt Entz. He's a backcountry rider. I think we talked to him on episode 30. When this one comes out, I think it's going to be close to 130. And he was talking about how he quit whatever his job was because he just wasn't that great, and he built his business around his passion for snowmobiling so that he could maximize the amount of time he has available to ride, in the backcountry. So he literally built a business from scratch that was set up where, he had X number of months available throughout the year to do pretty much professional snowmobile riding. I'm like, yeah, he figured it out. That's where it's at.
I don't feel like I've worked a day since I've started this. I feel like I am a professional cheerleader.
Yeah, that's awesome.
and it feels great because the feedback that I receive from my clients is better than any type of salary that I could have taken at a different job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, where are you at today? Let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you said you're working with a number of companies. What's going on today? What are you super excited about? What are you fired up about? Let's go there.
Well, I mean, I definitely am fired up about 2019. I started my company in 2016,
mm-hmm.
and I was actually employed for Gray Motorsports, which now holds the Pro Stock Car World Championship with Tanner Gray. That was my first client in 2016. And then 2017, we split ways, and I took on 4 different clients in 4 different categories. And now heading into 2019, I have about 8 clients in 6 different categories. So I'm super excited about 2019. My business is growing because what we're doing is growing, mm-hmm. and it's producing results. And I mean, it's a great thing. It's a great thing to be a part of my team and to be able to call this my own, and it's working. We have our own little secret sauce, I guess you can say, mm-hmm. That really drives engagement and a lot of people want to be a part of, whether it's new fans or new sponsors. 2019 is a good year.
Perfect. One thing that I started doing a couple years back, Actually, probably around the time that I started this podcast. I also started this in 2016. It was December, though. So I just hit my 2-year mark. For people who don't know, we're recording this on January 2nd of 2019. But yeah, when around that time, I started picking words to define like years. So 2017 was a challenging year for me. And so 2018, I picked the word restore, because I just felt like there was a number of things in my life that I needed to restore. I ended up changing my day job. I ended up changing out a bunch of the things that I did for hobbies. Like I changed a lot. And this year I'm still haven't quite decided on my word yet. So I'm a couple days in. I thought I would have had it figured out by now, but I don't know if when you were saying like you're excited about 2019, that I get excited about thinking about that kind of stuff. You know, what's my word for this year? I've been thinking about thrive. You know, that one keeps coming to my head, but it sounds like you might have something similar in your head for 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like, so my business is innovative, right? The first innovative creation experts, and I'm all about helping my clients create their image, create their brand, and do it in a way that's unique to them, so that's innovative for them. And I really feel like those two words encompass 2019 because of, you know, the uniqueness in being able to create these great things for not only my I don't want to call my old clients, but my loyal clients and my new clients. So thrive is a great word, and I definitely think it can be thrown right in there with being, you know, innovation and creation.
Yeah, perfect. Well, what we're going to do next is actually take a quick break, and then right after that, we're going to come in to Heat 2 to talk about sponsorship, tactics, and strategies. But for now, quick moment to thank the sponsors for this podcast. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you got to check out TopThePodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistal of TopThePodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to TopThePodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Family, race, team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles, and if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a whole new radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So, like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt, your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, Neverlift Racing. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Heat 2, that's where we get into the details, the nitty-gritty stuff, the stuff that you really want to hear about sponsorship. And today we're going to talk a little bit about social media strategy, about public relations. That's where Natalie's expertise lies. And we talk a lot about social media on here, and every single time we bring it up, there's something new that, someone didn't know, another little tip that they picked up, or some algorithm changed, or whatever it is. We always come up with something new. But that's where I want to start at. Social media is a big part of the sponsorship world. Pretty much everybody who has a sponsorship relationship is involved in social media with one way, shape, or form. Some are more heavily involved than others, but there's some element with every single program. So let's start about that social media strategy. What are some of the things that you think people listening to this show, the sponsored riders, the sponsored racers, that they need to know?
Well, I definitely think there's two different types of social media strategies. There is a pull strategy and a push strategy, which the pull strategy would be fans wanting more information, meaning the rider isn't, is posting because the fans are wanting the information. Take one of my clients, for example, world champion top fuel racer Steve Torrance. He runs a family-owned company, Capco Contractors. That is his main primary sponsor, and they really don't have any additional sponsorship or any really responsibility to brand their race car as anything else besides their family business. So he has no reason to really show up for any type of sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So what his social media strategy is going to be a pull strategy, because you have people left and right that want to know what's going on with the Capco boys and Steve Torrance. They want to know what's going on round by round. They want to know, what kind of celebration they're having after they win, especially when you go 6 races undefeated in the 2018 NHRA countdown. You want to know what's going on and if they're making any kind of mistakes. And so that is definitely a pull strategy from fans wanting to know additional information. The push strategy is going to be the rider trying to promote themselves, trying to get their information in the hands of fans and readers. And that's a little bit more challenging. And that's really what I focus on, is how to create engaging content that people want more of. It's easy when you're in a Steve Torrance situation because you have people that can't get enough information. But how do you really go from a push strategy to a pull strategy? And that's the key thing, is creating content that people want more of. And I think it starts with the relationships that you have with the people in your industry. Just like you had talked about, we're creating a relationship with this interview here. How can you create relationships with more people? And that has to do with returning information when it comes to messages. If somebody's reaching out to you for information on a private message, make sure you're responding. Anytime anybody's commenting, make sure you're commenting back. Just really showing that you're engaged in creating that relationship with those people that actually want to see your information or see your content. And I think that's the biggest thing, the key thing, is furthering that relationship, and every relationship that you have in your industry is valuable.
Well, I don't know if you know this or if even my listeners know this, but I spent 10 years in manufacturing, and a lot of what I did in manufacturing was, a topic called lean manufacturing. It's trying to streamline your process, and there was a part of lean manufacturing that was called push and pull strategy. It's this, and I'm going to try to see if I can relate my understanding to what you just described. So in manufacturing, basically, picture an assembly line. I think everybody can picture an assembly line. You take something that you're putting together, and once it's together, you package it, you ship it to a customer. And a push strategy, the manufacturer will make a certain amount of things on their line that they define, and they basically say, here's the stock, here's the inventory, go sell it to somebody else. But that's a push strategy. You're pushing the product out there and saying, please, please, please do something with this. And, a lot of places it works. But it's kind of hard sometimes because you don't know yet how much of that you're going to sell. You know how to produce it. You know how many you can produce. You don't know if people are gonna buy it. So the opposite there is the pull strategy, in which case you let your customer define exactly how many that you need to produce, and you only produce another one once a customer has purchased one already. So if a customer says, "I want one," you give them one, and then another one says, "I want one," you give them one. Understanding that, I think it's the same thing, because
it's exactly the same thing.
I would have never thought
exactly the same thing.
I never would have thought in the show that I could have had the opportunity to link lean manufacturing to social media strategy, but we just did it.
There you go.
We just did it.
Yes, you did, and you did it perfectly. That was exactly the way that I tried to explain it, and you explained it back using a different example.
Perfect. Well,
yes, sir.
What I want people, when they're listening to these shows, I want them to take notes of like this, and next time you're talking with a sponsor, if you can tell them, hey, you know what? I use a push strategy with my social media. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, well, let me just tell you this.
Exactly.
That's how you get the upper hand, I think, in impressing people and letting them know, I have competence in this area. Plus, you just tell them, hey, I listen to Sponsored Rider Club podcast. So obviously I'm dedicated. Obviously I'm amazing. Boom. They're just going to just give you money at that point.
Well, that definitely gives you a leg up. I mean, if you're really trying to, I call it your toolkit. If you're really trying to sharpen your tools in your toolkit and chase a sponsor, that's one more thing that somebody else is not doing. You'll definitely be surprised. I've had experience working with a couple people that want you to do everything for them and not be involved and not sharpen their tools in their toolkit. And then when it comes time to them landing a sponsor or them acting appropriately for a sponsor, they have no idea what to do because their tools aren't sharp.
Yeah, that is a very good point. You've read, I think, just because you said that, have you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yes.
Okay, that's one of them. I think
absolutely.
Is that number 7?
Absolutely.
I don't remember what number it is.
I'm not sure what number it is, but I went back and put myself through 2 additional years of school just so I can make sure I had the proper reading list and the proper tools to make sure I could teach other people about them.
Exactly. So for people who have not read it, you don't even have to read all of it. There's like synopses out there to give you a good understanding of what 7 Habits are all about. But one of them is basically you're always sharpening the saw. You're always learning more. You're always pushing yourself to learn more, and especially with social media, because if you stay stagnant for, even months on what you've been doing, you could find yourself behind the curve. So yeah, okay. Well, that was good.
Technology is ever changing, and so if you're not on the forefront of what's going on or the new updates or whatnot, you're behind and you're going to get left.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that was good. We talked about push and pull strategy, and then I took us on a little tangent there. But what are other things that you think the sponsored riders or sponsored racers need to know?
Well, I talked about relationships, and that's really important. So I'm thinking most of the listeners, like my clients outside of Steve Torrence, find themselves in a push strategy where they're trying to get their information out there. They're really trying to grow their following, really trying to land a big sponsorship. And it really starts with the current relationships that you have in the industry now, whether it's somebody that works on your crew, whether it's a parts supplier. These people could be valuable, now or even in your future. And it's really important to make sure that you have really good rapport with these people, that they can say that you're a hard worker, that they can say that you show up early and you stay late and you're willing to put the time in, and it's quality time. It's not just you show up and you're not present in the moment, that you're really engaged in what you're doing. Because now these people turn into your references, and your references can not only move up in these companies, or, your crew members might know the owner of this company or that company, and they put a good word in for you because they are now your references and know what type of work ethic that you have. And that goes for overall sponsorship, but it also goes for social media as well. If you're a hardworking, likable person, more people are going to want to be affiliated with you. More people are going to want to know what's going on in your daily life. They're going to be your cheerleader, and in turn going to want to follow either your live postings, whether it's on Instagram story or Facebook story or Facebook Live or Instagram Live. They're going to want to hang on every moment that you're sharing with them because they like you and they genuinely know that you're a good person and would be a great ambassador for any type of brand. That goes with, say, your part supplier. Having that relationship with your part supplier that has a following on their social media sites. Create the relationship with them. Ask them if they can feature you, as not as necessarily a sponsorship, but as somebody who is a tried and true solution of the parts that they sell. Those type of relationships are so important, whether big or small. They're going to pay dividends in the future.
No, that's a really good point. And honestly, I've seen this strategy work well with some of the influencers on social media, I guess, and even podcasters. So I'll give two examples real quick. One of them is a former guest we've had on the show, Thomas Affelt of Sledders R Us. He basically runs an Instagram platform and Facebook platform for sharing snowmobiling stories. And he's partnered up with certain riders and racers, and he's even promoted a lot of my content. And, people will be able to take a picture that does have, whether it's their gear, their sponsors' gear, or their sponsors' machines or parts, whatever it is, get it on this platform, get thousands and thousands of engagement, and it's all for free. Just a matter of like a good relationship, which is pretty cool. And the next thing, for my show, I'll give an example. There's plenty of other shows that have this too. That we'll have people come on and like I love it when I have a guest that wants to come on the show. Like if someone reaches out to me and they want to be on the show, that's phenomenal. And we'll do that, and I promote them to a certain extent. They promote me to a certain extent, and our sponsors get the benefits from that as well. But it all is kind of based on relationships. But I don't know. There's a lot of different ways like that. Like you're saying, reaching out to your parts supplier and say, hey, maybe there's a promotional opportunity here. I've even had, someone, I've had a couple people now, George Hamill and Mike Pasquarella have both recorded commercials for my sponsors that I play on the show. So it's like, instead of me talking about the product, they're like, hey, look, we run this in our race program, blah, blah, blah. It's phenomenal. And they share that. But that was all just based off of good relationships.
And I think the biggest thing is asking these people. A lot of people are afraid to ask. And the worst thing that they can say is no, and you can be right back in the same situation that you're in. The best thing for them to say is yes, send us some photos, send us some video. We'd love to put this out there, because then it gives you as a rider another platform, another legitimate source for somebody saying, hey, this rider represents our product great. He's a great ambassador of what we do. He would be a great ambassador for your company or your company or your company, because this part supplier is obviously large enough to, one, have the overhead to build these parts, and two, whether you're purchasing these parts or whether, there's some kind of trade for these parts, it shows the legitimacy of your program. And I think that's the biggest thing, is legitimacy, because you are being featured on somebody else's account as opposed to just your own. And when we go back to that push strategy that I talked about, it's really important to get mentioned or featured on other accounts in order to help change your push strategy to a pull strategy.
Oh, that's awesome. What else? What else are you thinking about for social media strategy?
Well, there's so many different apps out there that are free that can help you enhance your photos or your videos. And I mean, I'd love to share a couple of the apps that I use, whether they're free or whether they're $5, a year. I mean, they're worth $1 million, or at least they make my clients look like $1 million.
Yeah.
Whether you are, you qualified for all the races or didn't qualify, I mean, you look like you're a champion to anybody. And
I'm intrigued. Like I got my notebook ready. I'm ready to roll with these.
Yeah. So I mean, whether you heard of these apps or not, I'm just going to tell you some of my favorites. And the more I use them, the better I use them. And then obviously my clients benefit because they get awesome content. So if you're looking for, a great app that's going to modify your photos, I use Snapseed. It is an app that was made by Google. Snapseed. It's all one word. SNAPSEED. It can change the color. It basically, it's an easier version of Photoshop that you can use right on your phone. You take a photo, you can open it up in Snapseed, enhance it just a little bit, and you look like you were, you're meant to be in the centerfold of a magazine.
That's how all my pictures look, though. So I probably don't need this app. It's just a natural thing. I can't help it. Take a picture of me, and it just
naturally.
Yeah, I get that from everybody. I don't know.
Well, not everybody has that gift.
No, I've not heard of Snapseed. I don't think I've heard of that one before. That sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna have to try that.
I was told this by my friend Greg Stump, who paints helmets out of North Carolina. He has an awesome job. I'm blanking the name of his helmet company, but back when I was with Tanner Gray had a couple helmets painted by him, and he was like, "You got to try Snapseed out." And now I've used it for years. Another one that's pretty neat is called Platoverse. Plotaverse. And what it does is, I believe this one was like $6 or something like that for the year. But it allows you to take a photo and choose certain areas of the photo and make it move. So it takes still photo and it creates movement of the photo, whether, there's a car doing a burnout or there's a really awesome sky above the track and you want to make the clouds move. When I do this for my clients, it's, can you do this? Can you do that? And they always want more of this, intriguing, moving photo. Normally gets a lot of reviews. And then lastly, Image Play, IMGPLAY. It can make your video faster. It can slow it down. You can make it a GIF. You can add words. I believe this one was free.
Okay.
IMGPLAY. And I just have to circle all this back to that engaging content and your toolkit. These are 3 apps, 3 tools that you can put in your toolkit that will make you look like a champion.
That is awesome. I have one more I want to add. It's not, no, it is an app as well. And I use it just for overlaying like text or things like that, which text overlays on social media don't always do that great. I know Facebook and Instagram sometimes will be like, warning, like too much text if you have that. But if you need to overlay sponsor logos on top of something, I use something called Canva, Canva. It's an app and it's a website thing, but that's where I do all my episode thumbnails, and it's very easy to get all different types of text or drop any logo or do little collages, and it's free. There's an upgraded version if you really want to get into it, but it's great for like cover photos if you want to do a custom cover photo for like Facebook or a Twitter. Yeah, I've really enjoyed that Canva. Actually, I've been using that for a long time. I've been using that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, when you find a good one and it does what you want it to, or you just get really proficient at using it. I mean, it can go to Snapseed, my go-to for a really long time, and I didn't want to venture out, but then I realized that all my photos were starting to look a little bit the same, and it looked like one person was managing 10 accounts, and so I needed to get a little bit more creative.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't really thought about that. Yeah. You probably have your own little style that you put on it, and if you use the same app and the same style, you're like, okay, I can see who's running this show here.
Why does this person look like this person's, and that and what makes you really good is making every single client unique and having 10 different styles, so they're all different, and that's when you become really good, and that's what we definitely pride ourselves on, is being really good and creating the style for the right client.
Oh, that's cool. Well, so speaking of making a client stand out, doing something unique for them. I mean, is there something that you've done for whether it's Steve or one of your other clients that was really cool, something that maybe did get a lot of engagement or, did get a lot of people excited about it? Do you have anything like that to share with the group?
What's interesting is the things that make my clients or Steve stand out is their own personalities. And a lot of people are afraid to show their quirkiness or to show really who they are because they're afraid of the judgment from the public eye. And that's the biggest thing that most of my clients have to get over is that when you put content out on social media or you land yourself an awesome sponsor and you're getting a lot of engagement and your followers are starting to grow, there isn't always going to be a positive opinion, but you have to, you just have to drown those people out and remain who you are. And the best example that I can use is because it's the most relevant is, when Steve was pursuing his championship, let's see, September all the way to November, a lot of people were criticizing him on, things that he may have said. He's a little bit loose-lipped and says what comes off of his tongue, but he's a really strong Christian man. And when he started giving the glory to God after he was winning, and not only was he giving glory to his team, the Capco boys, but he was always giving glory to God, it seemed like he was being slapped on the wrist every time because that's not what people wanted to hear, or at least that's not what the broadcast team wanted to hear. They wanted to hear more loose-lipped. And for him, he was being true to who he was, but he was receiving a lot of negative opinion to that. And he continued to give the glory to God, continued to wear his heart on his sleeve, and everything turned out as it did, but it wasn't really received well. And you would think, how could something so genuine not be received well? And it was because of who the audience was. They weren't prepared to hear it. And so you can't be afraid of what everybody is going to say. You just have to remain true to who you are and put your message out there, and it will go way farther than any kind of fabricated strategy you could possibly come up with.
Yeah, there's been some examples that people have shared with me, over the past couple of years too, where they've had a strategy, stuck true to themselves, and they didn't have really an audience or anything initially, and then one day, like, boom, it hit. Actually, that's what I talk about Gary Vaynerchuk on here quite a bit, and that's what he talks about. He's like, yeah, you're going to have 6 listeners for like 4 years, but that's fine. Just keep putting your message out there, like, keep being true, and then all of a sudden, like, it's going to start snowballing, and, the hard work's going to pay off.
Right. It's becoming comfortable in your own skin, and that's really what I try to help my clients find is create an environment to where they become comfortable. Whether I have a video camera or my phone or, that's all one. Let's be honest. I mean, whether you're photo or video, it's just a swipe left or a swipe right.
Yeah.
It's really getting that comfortable, whether it's a quirky laugh that you have or a dance move or a relationship with your son or daughter, a relationship with your wife or your dad or your mom or whoever. Those type of moments are relatable, and, 100% of the population can relate to that. And it really makes you genuine. Whether you love someone or you hate someone or, focusing on who you are as a person holistically is really what's important.
No, that's very good. And there's some, biological reasons for that. The way a human brain is designed, it's all of the decisions are made in the emotional part of the brain. So anytime you can appeal to somebody's emotions, that's when, that's where they actually make those decisions at, and that's where they remember the impactful things, and, that's where they decide that whatever this information is, they're like, this is good stuff, and I'm gonna remember this and recall it later. You probably got into that stuff in like consumer behavior classes or something.
Absolutely, and that's why so many. If you look at it, so many companies are turning to influencers because of their ability to relate with a large group of people. Mm-hmm. So, if you're somebody who is struggling with getting a sponsor, really look at the content that you're putting out there. Again, I'm really kind of focusing on the push strategy people. Look at the content that you're putting out there. If it's just constantly a photo of your race car, or a photo of your motorcycle, or a photo of your snowmobile, you're only really relating to the people within your industry. And I mean, the motorsports industry is growing, yes, but it's really important to be able to connect with various groups of people throughout all the industries and bring them back to why they should follow you. And that is really the secret sauce with all of it, is connecting with people in your industry and connecting with people outside of your industry, and developing the strategy of how you're going to relate to those people and bring them back to why they should follow you and be your cheerleader.
Yeah, I like that. That's a lot of good stuff, and it's something we've talked about on here before, where I've said, hey, let's try to bring in non-endemic sponsors so that you can broaden the motorsports industry, so that there's money coming in and resources coming in from outside of just motorsports. So non-endemic is people who are not necessarily in the industry. But what we have not talked about on the show before is, how do you then bring people from outside the motorsports industry into your world, into your following? That's pretty important. And there's people out there that have done it, right? I mean, I talk a lot about Amy Hood, Amy Hood, 4x4 Barbie. Her name's Pleasant Cook. She's been on the show 4 times now, and both of them are really good examples. If you go through like their followers, they have massive engagement, but their followers are not just in the motorsports industry, but that's where they started. But they bring in other things. They bring in other people. That's pretty interesting. I feel like I just had a little light bulb go off in my head.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're turning light bulbs on, that's really important. Hopefully, you're turning one on, and all the listeners are turning one on too. I mean, you talk about people who are not in the industry. Think of a family member. In your head, close your eyes right now. Think of a family member that has never been to your race, or never heard of your experience at the track, or they really don't understand what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Reach out to that one person, reach out to those people, and tell them about it, and bring them out to your experience. Really, really immerse them in what you do, because that's one or two or a group of people who weren't in your industry and didn't know what you did that now know what you do. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just that little effort grows who you are as a person, and they'll go and tell their friends, they'll tell their friends and tell their friends, and you'll turn into that influencer who gave this awesome experience to people who didn't really know what you did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's good stuff. We've probably already started talking about this a little bit, but I do want to touch on public relations. What are some of the things that the people listening need to be paying attention to from a public relations standpoint?
The biggest thing that I have is overselling. I mean, if you're constantly trying to have that conversation with the one sponsor that you would die to have on your snowmobile or race car or motorcycle or whatever you race, they know that you're trying to land a sponsorship with them. Mm-hmm. They know you and 15 other people are trying to land a sponsorship with them. So the biggest thing is to not oversell yourself and make every conversation with that person about a sponsorship or about selling, or, just avoid overselling and I can go back to the relationship aspect and who you are holistically as a person. Letting that shine through is going to sell itself. And the best strategy that I can have from that is using your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ed, when I was with Tanner Gray, we were conducting a push strategy. It was his rookie year racing pro stock car, and nobody really knew who he was. They knew his last name. They knew his grandfather, Johnny Gray, who had raced pro stock car as well as funny car, and they had knew his father, Shane Gray. But Tanner was really trying to make a mark. And so we had to look at what relationships his team had within the industry. And Sunoco is who they had received fuel from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really important to use that relationship to bring him more notoriety within the industry. So Sunoco is not only involved in drag racing, but they're also involved in NASCAR. And the Grays live in North Carolina. Well, there's the large NASCAR race in North Carolina. It just happened to be off that weekend. And contacting the Sunoco contact, we were able to use that relationship and get him in the suite of the it was the 7-Eleven suite.
Okay.
At the Charlotte race.
Mm-hmm.
And by using that relationship, we were able to put him in a perfect public relations spot for him to introduce himself to several sponsors and create more notoriety for who he was.
Oh, perfect.
And again, that goes back to everything we've talked about, from relationships to, who you are as a person, and making sure that, you are putting yourself in those situations to succeed.
I'm glad you used that specific example too, because there is a number of people who have been on this show and who listen to the show where they're coming from a family of riders and racers where, their grandfather or their grandmother, they're all known for some reason. And, they just happen to be like, oh, I know your last name, but I'm not exactly sure who you are yet. So that's kind of cool to use that specific example, because I think there's a lot of people can relate to that, where they've made their own mark on the industry by building off of that name and, carrying that torch and, bringing their own unique spin to it.
Yeah, I think that's really important in, in establishing yourself, not only as affiliated with these family members, but who you are as your own person. I can think of another example as far as public relations. Don't be afraid to tell people, that you're doing something good.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a genuinely good person, don't be afraid to tell people that, you've done a good thing. If you spend time at a homeless shelter, or you go to a hospital and you're in the cancer center, or you're in the cancer ward, tell people about it. But don't use it as a public relations tool. Use it as being a voice for those people to create a larger engagement and to create an urge in other people to do good as well. A lot of people don't want to use those acts of kindness for fear that they're being judged for, putting something out there to make them look a certain way. But instead of making you look a certain way, use that situation as urging other people to get involved and do what you do.
Mm-hmm. Now, I like that you brought that up too, because I think a lot of public relations comes down to the fear of what other people think of you. And fear is it's an interesting beast. Humans were originally built to survive, in the wilderness based off of relationships and connections with their tribe or, their people. And that still exists inside all of us. We don't necessarily need, tribes now to hunt with and, get all of the, just to be able to survive and get food and get warmth and shelter. A lot of these things have been taken care of. especially for the listeners. But we still view the people that, even if it's our social media followers, we view them in some like primal level as our tribe, and if they were to abandon us, then we're going to starve. And that's where the fear comes from. It's like, we don't want our tribe to abandon us because we don't want to starve. It's this, like, you know, like I said, it's a primal instinct that we still have, and that's what causes that fear and that feeling.
Right. I think that's very accurate. And that's why people, to be honest with you, that's why a lot of my clients come to me, because when it comes to contributing, contributing to Instagram or contributing to Facebook or Twitter or whatever there may be, there is that timid factor or that fear of being judged. And if they have somebody else do it for them, it really takes them out of that space, and they can say, well, I didn't do that, she did it, or they did it. Even though it's acting on behalf of them, it almost eliminates the fear because they're not the ones creating the content.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty good point.
It's very much to what you said, is the fear of what other people are thinking.
Definitely. You know, one thing that I would encourage people to do, if you have a little bit of that fear, go and watch one of your favorite YouTubers and pay attention to some of the background noises and, the publication quality. Some people out there are phenomenal, right? I'll tell you one thing that I noticed, because I have the fear in me, definitely. Even after doing 130 episodes, like, I still get nervous before doing them. Especially the live ones, I get really nervous before doing the live shows. But it took me a while to realize, like, I'm not perfect. I don't need to be perfect. People aren't even expecting me to be perfect. But the reason why I'm telling this story is I want you to go and watch one of your favorite YouTubers out there. I saw one the other day. I'm kind of nerdy too. That people probably know that by now, but I'm into, like, the superhero movies, and the Avengers Infinity War just came out a little while ago, and the next movie's coming, and I actually watch all these little, like, theory videos about what's coming. Well, my favorite theory video dude, I was like, man, this guy's got it together. He's got his good equipment. I just noticed the other day that he's got this, like, cool looking studio. I noticed the details. The walls are fake. They're like this, I don't know what it is.
It's as if he green screened himself in a different studio?
No, not even that. It's like it looks like brick, but it's really like a tablecloth type material, that he's hung to from the ceiling to make it look as if it's a real wall. And he's got things hanging from it that look real. I was like, wait a minute. I bet you he's sitting in, like, a garbage basement somewhere, which is where I do all my recording at, as a basement. I'm like, and he's got these fake walls put up, but this guy gets millions of views, and he didn't just throw it together, but it's not perfect. That's not $1 million setup. That's a $50 setup, and it looks great, and he does good, and it's not perfect. And
just like those apps, whether they're free or a couple bucks,
right?
They're gonna make you look like $1 million.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, I saw that, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. That little things like that, for me, they held me back from doing a live show for a long time. Just little stuff like that. Not having what I felt was the right lighting or whatever. Now that I know a little bit more about the way things are, like, man, just do it. Like, it doesn't even matter. All those little things, like, yeah, they do add value over time. Like, if you can get to a point where you can produce a really high quality content, great. But that shouldn't be the thing that stops you from doing it in the first place.
Right. I completely agree.
That was good. Wow, I just got a little excited there. But plus we started talking about superheroes and, like, they're cool. All right, well, I am actually going to start closing things out now. This has been phenomenal. We've covered a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. So at the finish line, that's where we kind of wrap things up. If there was something that, or maybe I should say, if there's one thing that the audience should take away from the show, what should that be? If they forgot everything else, what's that one thing?
Don't be afraid to contribute to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. I might have to quote that one.
Yeah, don't be afraid to contribute to the conversation. I have so many clients that I work with that are afraid to like or comment or post, and all they do is we call them the social media stalkers. Don't be a social media stalker and contribute to the conversation.
That's awesome. There's something to that for sure. Even I actually really like Instagram for that. For whatever reason, I like Facebook too, but on Instagram, if you see something like a company that you're passionate about or a person you're passionate about, if you comment or leave something in that, it seems like there's a high likelihood that they're gonna see it and engage with that comment, and I think that's pretty cool.
That's right. We are at the level of, big Fortune 500 companies are commenting. I mean, you look at classic cases is Wendy's. You tweet to Wendy's, they'll tweet back to you, or whether you complain about a certain airline, they'll get back to you. I mean, it is almost the best way to communicate. Go on to the customer service helplines. All you got to do is go on social media, say something, and they'll get back to you.
Right. You and I talked in a pre-interview a little bit about a few things. One of them was Evan Schendel. He's with Polaris Razor. He's on a live show. I think it ended up being episode 125 when it was released. And he's coming back on again too. But either way, he hit it home for me. He's like, I see everything. So him and his people who work on the Polaris Razor social media team, they see all of these things. So if you make a comment, they're likely going to see it. And there's teams of people in a lot of these companies that's what they do. And if they see you enough, they actually remember you. They actually start taking some notice, and they're like, huh, that person is always engaging. It's always positive. I can
look at my clients, and I know who their top fans are. And when I'm out at the track, I know exactly who they are. They don't know me, but I know them.
Yeah. And actually, you just said something interesting. The top fan deal. I know Facebook has that now. If you engage enough with somebody's content, you can be highlighted or recognized somehow as a top fan.
Yeah.
I'm that for Jim Beaver. I just got a notification the other day. It was like, you're a top fan. I was like, sweet.
Look at you go.
I know. I'm pretty awesome. But yeah, that's another. I never really thought about what that could mean from attracting sponsors. If you become a top fan for them, they're like, oh well, they must have some commitment to my product, because that takes a lot of engagement to get to that point. So another thing to think about. Whew, that was way more than one thing, but that was my fault. I turned it into multiple things.
I said don't be afraid to contribute to the conversation.
All right, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
Well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'll tell you that my main focus is my clients. But if you friend me on Instagram, it's Innovative Creation Experts. Like I said, it's the year of innovative creation, and I'm an expert at it. So find me on Instagram and Facebook. Perfect.
Well, I appreciate you, Natalie, for joining us today and for going through the whole rescheduling thing. For people who don't know this, I ran into this crazy issue with my software the day we first tried to record this show, which was months ago, and I had to literally revamp the entire way that I do my recordings. Most people don't know that, but other than maybe there's probably two people who know, because they had to help me figure it all out. But either way, I'm glad that you stuck with me through that for multiple months of trying to get our schedules to line up. We made it happen, but that's it. I'm going to leave it at this. Have fun and ride safe.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. And thank you very much for dealing with my voice during the intro and now the outro. I am hoping that next time I talk to you, I got a legit voice back. But either way, make sure you subscribe. That way you don't miss upcoming guests. And follow us on social media. You can get all the insider information about the show and some behind-the-scenes looks at things. And specifically on Facebook, we've got two special things that happen on Facebook. One is we do live shows there, so you can come in, you can interact with guests, you can interact with me, ask questions, and we can answer them on the spot. But also, we have the Sponsored Rider Club Facebook group that you can request to join. There's almost 2,000 members in this group, so you can go and ask questions, and you can get answers directly from people who are doing this day in and day out. So it's a really good venue for networking and lessons learned. Now, I want to give some special thanks to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopTopodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, and Subboy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.